Hey there, all you cool cats and kittens. It's Mike here from Big Cat Rescue, and today I want to talk to you about tigers. Tigers are striped. I'm so sorry. What's up, Skycrest family? Sorry about that distraction a little bit earlier. I couldn't help myself. This is now week 2 of our virtual staff devotions. I hope you've been enjoying these recordings. They've been a lot of fun for me to make. If you feel like they would be a blessing to others, by the way, then you just feel free to go ahead and share them as much as you like. This morning we are in Mark chapter 10, and we're going to focus our attention on 2 key family relationships. First of all, the marriage relationship, and second of all, our relationship with children. Now, I realize that we're all in very close quarters because of this quarantine, so hopefully this will give you some things to think about as you interact with your own spouse and your own children during this time. Let's go ahead and look at verse 1. Jesus is teaching the crowds. He's near the Jordan River, but he's in the wilderness, and just tons of people are coming to listen to him preach. And in verse 2, his political and spiritual enemies, the Pharisees, come up and they ask him a question. Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? Now, Mark mentions that they didn't ask this because they were looking for information. Instead, verse 2, they did so in order to test him. They knew exactly what his position on divorce was, and Jesus had a very conservative view of marriage and divorce. Jesus believed that a man was not permitted to divorce his wife for any reason except for sexual immorality. Now, there were a lot of people in Jesus' day who believed that a man could divorce his wife for any reason. And these Pharisees are trying to get Jesus to say something to anger that crowd so that they will hopefully abandon him. But Jesus is too smart to fall into their trap, obviously. And so he answers their question with another question. He says, "What did Moses command you?" And they responded, "Moses allowed a man to write a certificate of divorce and to send her away." So there you have it. Divorce for any reason, Jesus. What do you have to say about that? And Jesus explains the need for such a command in verse 5 when he says, "It was because of your hardness of heart that he wrote you this commandment." But verse 6, "From the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not man separate." So Jesus is done talking about divorce. Instead, he wants to talk about God's original design for marriage. And there are 2 characteristics of marriage that I want to draw our attention to. The first one is unity. Look again at what he says in verse 6. "From the beginning, God made them male and female." Now, you might be thinking, I thought you were about to talk about unity, but males and females are very different. Well, yeah, obviously, we're different physically and emotionally and on a number of different levels. But even though we're different, we are complementary. And God created men and women to become so united with one another that they abandon all of their other family ties, and the 2 of them actually become one person. So marriage illustrates this unity that God is after. Now, let me ask you a question. During this quarantine, what are some things that you can do to promote unity with your spouse? Maybe it's something simple like eating a meal together. Maybe it's taking a walk or grabbing the bicycles or the tennis rackets or whatever it is, sitting down and watching a family movie together. Do whatever it takes to promote unity, especially in your relationship with your spouse. Not only is marriage to be characterized by unity, but also by faithfulness. In verse 9, Jesus says, "What therefore God has joined together, let not man separate." Nothing should separate us from our spouses. sin and selfishness and stubbornness are opportunities for us to show mercy and grace and the love of Jesus to people who at the moment might not deserve it. So again, I know it's close quarters, quarantine, everybody's stepping all over each other's business, and the tendency is to maybe get a little bit annoyed with your spouse. But how can you remain faithful to your covenant bond of marriage and continue to promote unity in your relationship with your mate? Marriage relationship is very important, and so is our relationship with our children. So verses 13 through 16 focus on that, and especially the attitude that children have that we as adults would do well to model. Verse 13, these women start to bring him their small children so that Jesus will lay his hands on them and pronounce a blessing over them. The disciples think that Jesus is far too busy for this, and they begin to send the women away. This makes Jesus very angry, and he rebukes his disciples, and he says, "Let the little children come to me. Don't you dare hinder them, because to such belongs the kingdom of God. Truly, I say to you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God like a child will not enter it." And then he took the kids up in his arms and blessed them, laying his hands on them. So this teaches us that God's kingdom is characterized not only by unity and faithfulness demonstrated in marriage, it's also characterized by faith and dependence on Christ demonstrated by these small children. I mean, think about a child. He can't really take care of himself on his own. He's completely dependent on mom and dad to provide for him things that he could never provide for himself. And in the same way, if we hope to enter God's kingdom, we need to rely on Jesus and trust him and his death to do for us what we could never do for ourselves. So think of some ways that you can even spend time with your children, maybe even spend time examining their faith and asking yourself the question, do I trust God like this little one trusts me? I hope that you have a great day. God bless.